Congresswoman Bustos, thank you so much for joining me in our Biofuel Champion video series. It's wonderful to see you today. And thank you for taking the time to speak with us. I want to start with just a kind of a broad, easy question. Why is supporting the biofuels industry and the Illinois farmers so important to you?
Well, so let me first say, Emily, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate all you do, and please consider me and our office an ally. And we want to make sure that you are successful. But so on a personal level, I come from a long line of family farmers. I've served on the Ag Committee since I first came to Congress. I was first elected back in 2012. So now in my fourth term, running for my fifth term. And so not only do farmers play an essential role in our food and our national security, but they're also the backbone of our regional economy, not just in my congressional district, the one that I serve, but all throughout the Midwest. And so my congressional district, it spans 14 counties, 7,000 square miles. It's home to 9,600 family farms. And the biofuel sector is crucial in that ag system, with about 40% of corn produced in the United States being used for ethanol. So on top of that, as you know, a major byproduct of ethanol is our DDGs, used for animal feed across other sectors of the agricultural industry. So, I think the long and short of it is biofuels have an important role to play in the conversation around clean energy, around carbon emissions. Ethanol burns cleaner than traditional gasoline, and since it's derived from corn, ethanol CO2 emissions are considered atmospheric carbon neutral, and I think that's important to note. Sometimes you think that people are pointing fingers at us like we're not part of the solution, that we're part of the problem, and I think it's fair, we know this, but we're part of the solution, and we want to make sure that people know that. In in my own congressional office, we've put forward a plan that we call the Rural Green Partnership, and it gives our family farmers a seat at the table around the climate conversation. And I was very, very pleased to see that the Select Committee on the Climate Crisis in the House included some of those provisions in the recent Climate Action Report. So we're making progress. We have to stick with it.
As you know all too well, it's been an incredibly difficult year for our nation, for our globe, and certainly for the biofuels industry. There have been a few positive steps, though, for this industry to help stabilize the marketplace. You've played a really important role, Congresswoman. Can you talk a little bit about the work that you've been doing in the House to help get us back stabilized and on a road to recovery?
Yeah, so obviously the whole world knows that we are in the middle of this worldwide pandemic. And so with that being the backdrop, in late April, the House Appropriations Committee, which is, I sit on two committees. I've been on the Ag Committee since I was first elected, and this is my first term. I'm also on what some consider the most powerful committee in all of Congress, the House Appropriations Committee. But we had a conference call back in April with Ag Secretary Perdue. And on the call, I asked Secretary Perdue whether he planned on using any of the funds that had been appropriated by Congress in the CARES Act, which was one of our earlier COVID-19 recovery packages, if he planned to use any of that funding to provide relief to the biofuels producers. And his answer was clear. He said no. And then added that he would not do biofuels producers. And his answer was clear. He said no. And then added that he would not do that without the explicit direction from Congress. So I thought, well, then let's do something about it. So I fought for the inclusion of the Renewable Fuel Reimbursement Program in the HEROES Act, which is what we passed as another recovery package out of the House more than 2 months ago now, back on May 15th. So this is what the Senate is now debating. But what I inserted into the HEROES Act, and which did pass, is a program that would reimburse biofuel producers at a rate of 45 cents per gallon on what was produced between January 1st and May 1st of this year as a way to offset the record low prices that they'd experienced as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. So while we work to provide relief from the impacts of the coronavirus to the biofuel producers, it's really important for us to continue investing in long-term infrastructure that will help the biofuels sector thrive. And so on top of that, it's also why I fought for language in the fiscal year 2021 agricultural appropriations bill that would encourage the U.S. Department of Agriculture to work with EPA to update the motor vehicle emissions simulator, the MOVES system, which is obviously, I think you know this, but used to estimate emissions for mobile sources of air pollutants, greenhouse gases, air toxins, et cetera. So the last time the MOVE system was updated with biofuels emissions data was clear back in 2014, so 6 years ago. And so providing a new model with updated data on cleaner burning ethanol, and using government research and putting this all up to speed, we think will be helpful. So the goal here is to have accurate data that can help demonstrate the benefits of using biofuels and expand the use of them across sectors.
Let's talk about something that has been a source of a tremendous amount of our pain and demand destruction well before COVID, small refinery exemptions. Recently, EPA updated their dashboard to include 6 new additional gap year exemption requests, bringing the grand total to 58. So that's a total of 86 pending requests for oil refinery exemptions. Talk to me about why resolving once and for all the small refinery exemption process is so critical for you and for biofuel producers and farmers.
All right, well, I will start this by saying I don't want to get political, but I mean, I think the elephant in the room is that the Trump administration has tried time and time again to really abdicate its responsibility to uphold the renewable fuel standard. I see it as showing their loyalty to their friends at Big Oil rather than supporting the family farmer. I see it in those stark terms. What happened, so if you go to January of this past year, we had the 10th Circuit Federal Court. It made it clear that the EPA had improperly granted these small refinery exemption requests. And instead of applying that court decision, what happened is the Trump administration decided to continue to defy congressional intent and continue to grant these gap year extensions. So as I mentioned earlier, the biofuel sector has a cascading effect on the agricultural industry. So abusing the small refinery exemptions, all that does is decrease corn demand and eventually lead to things like the closure of our biofuel processing plants, which will set off supply chain disruptions across sectors. So it's a big problem.
In a few short months, we're going to be having our annual Biofuel Summit. And this is when we bring a fly-in for our members. In years past, certainly you always meet with our members. You've addressed our members in previous summits. This year, it'll be a virtual engagement. Tell me why it is so important for you to hear from your constituents, from our members, from our industry supporters.
Now, it is incredibly important, and I look forward to those visits every single year. I always like for you to see my Growth Energy Award plaque hanging in my office, and I like to spend as much time listening as I do talking. I'm a former reporter where I'm really more comfortable being the one asking the questions and then listening to those answers and absorbing that. I always say God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, and we should use those proportionately. So hearing from your members, from producers and industry supporters really helps me gain a better understanding of what's taking place on the ground. And I use that to make sure that I'm an ally for all of you in Washington. So I can't stress enough the importance. I'm sorry that this all has to be done virtually. Obviously, none of us can control that, but I'm very happy to be able to visit with you today. So during the pandemic, please know I am a phone call away, I'm a Zoom away, and always happy to talk, to visit, and to listen.
Well, I look forward to talking with you as part of the summit, and I thank you again for your time today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Emily. I really appreciate your time.